I'd now like to invite the panelists for the super panel to join the stage, please. So if you could make your way up. In the meantime, as they're doing this, in the audience, I just want to get a gauge of what our audience looks like. How many of you are broadcasters? Raise your hand. How many of you are doing programmatic video? Yep. How many are doing addressable TV? Yeah, slightly fewer. And how many are doing programmatic TV? Okay, fantastic, brilliant. All right. You want to come around this? Oh, okay, brilliant.
Correct order.
I'm not sure. Okay, so I'd like to welcome from right to left, we have Barry from Channel 4, so that's Barry John. We have Virginie Dremeaux from Canal+, who will do her best, although she's lost her voice. We have Barry Marcus from Shaw Media. We have Ruth Zohrer from Mindshare. We have Matteo Cardani from Publitalia, and we have Léon Siotis from SpotX. So I'm going to try to start off big and then get a little bit more specific. So let's start off at the basics and the strategy. What is the point of programmatic TV? Why are we doing programmatic TV? So maybe Barry, tell us, why should Shaw Media, or why is Shaw Media doing programmatic TV?
Listening to everyone for the last couple of days, everyone has a slightly different reason for doing it and a different way of doing it. And I hate the word programmatic, because if you ask 50 people, you'll get 100 opinions on what it means. But for us, we've started with not addressable, but with a linear optimization product, where we use set-top box and consumer segmentation, and we do index buying. Everyone calls that something different as well. For us, programmatic allows us to automate that. And to get, we've got 45 pay stations and a large national network. It's really hard for a buyer or a rep to optimize efficiently and get maximum yield doing it manually. Excel spreadsheet and input system. An algorithm does it quite easily, and it lets us get all the benefits of programmatic that have been spoken about.
So it's about data optimization of linear inventory rather than moving from addressable to programmatic. Barry John, would you say it's the same thing for you? Are you guys doing programmatic as an optimization procedure?
Yes. I think the challenge for us is, as Jeff pointed out, programmatic means many different things. To us, programmatic is a carrier in its simplistic terms, which is an electronic system that allows us to take in bookings from agencies. 95% of our bookings are already transmitted in that way, so we're already doing that in that sense. I think for us, the next step to that is the automation of that from a slotting perspective in a similar way, is to move away from 6-week deadlines for bookings to much more real time. And that's not dynamically inserted yet. That's the absolute ambition, but I think the near-term ambition for us is to move to a world where we're slotting immediately prior to TX. So that's not one-to-one, it's still one-to-many, but it's definitely giving more flexibility, providing agencies with more opportunity to optimize, us more opportunity to slot more efficiently, and definitely allowing us greater yield maximization as we begin to wait for the end game, which is addressable on an individual basis. But as a broadcaster without any relationship with our customers via the pipes, we're just a broadcaster. We don't have an ISP or a broadcast solution. Therefore, we end up having to partner, and we're waiting for the technology to land. So that's certainly where we're at.
Matteo, in Italy, it's probably a very different market from the Canadian or the UK market. What is the point of programmatic TV for you guys? Where do you see your programmatic TV strategy?
Okay. Currently, we are doing programmatically on our digital offer, and our digital offer includes catch-up television on all digital screens, and it accounts for 25% of our inventory is traded programmatically. With regard to television, honestly, it's not our first priority on the agenda, because I do think that programmatic is mainly a process. It has been said before, and it delivers operational efficiency, while addressable advertising creates added value for television, and this is what we are aiming to. And we are building this proposition we are both a free-to-air TV broadcaster and a pay TV broadcaster. And we are currently offering and selling addressable advertising on pay TV through direct sales, so with no programmatic process. And that, for me, it's important because it is a distinction between addressable advertising, that is a business component, and programmatic, that is a process. The interesting thing, the last thing I say, is that, as it was said yesterday by Michael Bologna, the interesting thing with addressable advertising is that it is attractive for a different advertiser not used to television. I have in mind retailers, geo-localized, geo-business, retailers, chains, and or business like luxury product aiming to target niche target also in television. So that's our experience.
So currently it's about hyper-targeting, it's about addressable, and programmatic is the next step.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, and Virginie, what's going on in France?
Yeah, well, again, apologies for my voice. I tried to do my best. Well, just if we assume that TV is the furniture and not the contents, just as Erwin Gottlieb said yesterday. So we are speaking about the TV set in the living room. And that programmatic is basically automation of the process. And then it could be the ability to ingest data. And then it could be the ability to a new sales process, maybe with bidding, maybe with real-time bidding, and maybe to do also dynamic creative optimization. Then if we put everything together, then I think it's not TV that, programmatic TV, TV needs programmatic to be able to enhance its advertising. We cannot do that manually. The process has to be programmatic. We need algorithms. So we are convinced in France that we need programmatic TV to evolve and to be able to compete with the digital world. Again, the barbarians at the gate, well, yes, we are looking at them. And we just that we have very good way to fight against these barbarians. And so programmatic TV would be the way to merge the best of the two worlds, the high quality and the power of the TV and the quality of the digital when you can target. So right now in France, we are not allowed to do addressable. There is a legal environment that doesn't allow that. We are in the process to move on, and we are trying just to make this legal environment evolve. So hopefully maybe next year we will be able to have evolution in that field. But for the moment, we would like to be able first to have better commercial allocation within the ad breaks using data. So that would be programmatic TV already. And we could do it on the broadcast model, so we don't have to wait for the regulation to evolve. So basically in France right now, we are working at the first step model when we could enhance programmatic TV, through programmatic TV model, thanks to data, the broadcast, and then we would like to move to addressable.
Okay, so it's kind of similar page maybe to Barry M. It's about kind of better allocation of inventory rather than kind of the real time or the addressable element. Léon, is that sort of in line with what you've seen from your customers? What do broadcasters want, or how do they approach programmatic TV?
Well, I mean, I think it's been touched on today as well that, although the execution and the problem, the execution's regional, the kind of problem is definitely something that everyone's kind of seeing globally. And, for us at least, what we're trying to solve is eliminating the uncertainty in that transactional process. So, as it stands right now, it can take you 24, 48, hours to get, results, whether or not you actually hit the right person. So our goal with programmatic is eliminating that in its entirety, and therefore using all the number of tools that have been kind of outlined in order to solve that.
Brilliant. And Ruth, you stand here as the representative of the demand side. Yes. So tell us, you've heard all of the broadcaster, why do advertisers want programmatic, and what do they demand from these guys?
Well, we really haven't talked about the most important element, right? Which is the people we're trying to reach with our advertising, and the people that help most of us generate some cash to keep our businesses going, right? And that's the audience. And I think we've skirted around the issue a little bit. We've talked about the declining penetration of TV. But when you start slicing that data across age in particular, there's a big concern within the younger generations because their consuming habits are changing significantly. And so for me, working with brands like the Unilevers of this world, being able to reach those audiences becomes very important. And TV is in many cases not the silver bullet it used to be. And so we have to find different ways in which we can speak to those consumers effectively. And that's, in my point of view, one of the main reasons why the digital world and the TV world are starting to converge. It's because 20 years down the line, when those people are your 35 to 44 demographic, we're going to be in trouble if we don't have a solution to speak to them in the ways in which they want to be spoken to. And that in many cases will be that small screen that they hold in front of their face all the time.
So that's interesting. That's kind of almost warrants a response from one of you guys. So the TV, I mean, some of the stats that we saw, it shows that TV is doing pretty well. Like the viewing's still pretty high, maybe not as well in the younger demographic, but they're still watching TV. So what would you guys argue saying, okay, well, you know, the younger generation's leaving your platforms?
I try to answer. I do agree, and I share the concern. That is why we are building, let me say, a sort of a new ecosystem. We have our legacy in, free-to-air television and pay-TV television, but that is why we built a huge portfolio of digital properties. In Italy, we have 22 million unique monthly viewers, and just to give you an idea, Facebook is 23, and Google is 25. We built these with our own properties and third parties. We are, for example, the exclusive resellers for Yahoo. We are the exclusive reseller for Shazam. So we are combining a digital ecosystem to complement the TV offer. We know that there are some content that are still the silver bullets for young people. But they are not enough, and you have to build, let's say, a system of addressable advertising from the traditional affinity planning on broadcast, addressable advertising on broadband television, and addressability you can get in the digital ecosystem. This is the way we are building. It's not already, let's say, fully technologically enabled. We are building that. We built a data management platform in order to create our, let's say, consumer profiles with first-party data, third-party data, and interestingly, we are collaborating with many clients, like telcos or e-commerce, sharing data to build, let's say, new insights on consumers, down the consumer funnel, so close to the final call to action. So this is the view. If we, and I do agree with what was said by Adam before, we have to fail, because if we fail, we learn faster and faster, and this is our approach.
Yeah, you've touched on all the points. We'll talk about data in a bit, but Bariam, maybe you can share with us what you are doing in Canada, because you're imminently launching a programmatic TV platform.
Yeah, so we, like I said, we started with linear optimization, and that took a couple years to build out. It's 500,000 household set-top box return path data sample, and then layering in the consumer segmentation.
How many consumer segments? Are we talking similar to Adam, kind of hundreds of consumer segments? Are we seeing left-handed nurses?
We are, in fact,
okay,
seeing it.
great.
We started with what we call 15 standard categories. Okay. And what we found is almost inevitably, we've had about 100 advertisers using it. It's about 7% of our revenue now. And very quickly, they use the standard category, and then they want a custom category. And so the data sets we use allow quick customization. Mm-hmm. But with so many channels, it's really difficult. So we just want to automate that, and we want to change the conversation, as I think a couple people have said, from programmer network as a proxy for audience to audience. And in an ideal world, and where we think we're going, we're no longer going to talk about, for some brands and some campaigns and some advertisers, we're not going to talk about what program you were in or what network you were on. We're going to say you asked for 1 million adult 25 to 54 impressions indexed against fashionistas with a certain reach curve frequency, and that's what we delivered.
And how did you get it off the ground? How many different parties did you have to work with to get this programmatic?
It feels like 100. There's a whole back end on the optimization piece. On the issue in Canada, at least, is a lot of the programmatic solutions were developed for digital. And then they went to a US basis, and Canada's different, and just like all the markets are different. So there's a fair bit of customization work and development work that needs to be done. We're working through that. And then you have to feed in the right information, so we use Numeris. And we have Live +7 versus C3, so you've got to feed in overnights to make sure it's optimizing as you go forward and you're not over-delivering or under-delivering. That takes some learning for the companies that provide the solutions. But we expect to be doing beta trials in 2017, and we think it'll ramp up fairly quickly.
So how much do you think you'll be trading programmatically by this time next year?
This time next year, I would say maybe somewhere between 5 and 10%.
Of linear TV?
Of linear.
Of TV advertising.
Yeah, because it's not just the targeted linear. You can also do just optimizing a traditional buy.
And is this going to be open just to your current clients, or is it with the aim of getting new clients?
It'll be open to everybody, and our goal is to have every piece of inventory available to the system, because that's how it'll make its best choices. But it should be smart enough to know that it should only grab a survivor spot if it really needs a survivor spot.
Got it. Is it the same experience for you, Barry J? You're quite advanced in programmatic video. Channel 4 has been very vocal about their efforts there. What about programmatic TV?
So I think we're probably talking at cross purposes in many regards. We in the UK sell primarily on audience already, so we don't sell program specific. Agencies have the choice to choose specific programs if they want to, but in the main we sell on, for Channel 4, we're an upmarket young brand of channels, therefore we sell primarily on 16 to 34 and ABC One audiences. So the challenge for us is therefore to optimize slightly differently. We don't have a fixed price, which also means it's slightly more complex, in some regards, but much more simpler in others. We have a floating station price. So we're never full in a sense. We just have to be very optimal in the way that we slot, which is therefore, for us, the programmatic question moves on a stage to say, well, we already take our orders electronically, we're already relatively efficient. There's only 3 main buying points in the UK. And therefore, it becomes a slotting challenge rather than a kind of audience challenge, or a dynamic ad insertion question. So for us, it's a case of moving that on, particularly in the UK. Jeff's been very vocal about some of the differences already. But I think it's a slight variation on the same theme, which is to say, well, we need to reach the young audiences. We need to, command the attention of those young viewers and those younger customers for the advertisers. And therefore, for us, it's about optimization of that, which is a case of providing products to our viewers in a meaningful way. So that's around VOD, that's around allowing them to consume the content they want to consume, where they want to consume it, and when they want to consume it. So it's a kind of provision of that information as a broadcaster and those programs in a way that's meaningful for them. And then we bring that all back together for the advertiser to optimize both across television, across VOD, and enabling us to provide a single buy. And certainly a lot of the technology vendors have been speaking about that optimization to sit as a layer, make it yield managed, yield efficient, and make it ultimately, as Erwin said, make it very straightforward for the advertisers, and for the media agencies. We need to make sure that what we're providing is a sensible solution that's scalable, that's efficient, and is cost effective. So the challenge is providing that. We're working hard to do that. Programmatic VOD is something we're quite far advanced with. We've been doing that for about 18 months now, and got some significant learnings around, what people ask for is not necessarily what they want. And you may provide a solution that you think, well, that's exactly what you asked for, and they will tell you, yes, that is what we asked for, but that isn't what we meant at all. What we actually want is this. So there is a trial and error, a learning phase, a failure phase, definitely. But certainly we're at the point now where we're beginning to advance quite quickly into merging those two markets of VOD and linear. And I think over the next sort of 18 months, we'll start to genuinely see the unification of those. We already trade those with agencies as a single buy. We'll begin then to see the merging of just ultimately providing advertisers their target audience regardless of where they're consuming, whether that be on television, whether that be on VOD, whether that be on simulcast. We can dynamically add insert through Yospace, and we can start to make sure that we are optimizing for advertiser needs and also for our viewers' needs, providing the merging of those two sets.
So a couple points I wanted to touch on from your response. So firstly, the dynamic ad insertion bit. Is that something really that you want to implement in linear television as well? And is it possible given the compliance regulations?
So that is the end point, I think. But right now, no, that's not possible. So that is compliance-wise.
Will it ever be possible?
I think it will be possible for a broadcaster. I don't think it will be possible for an agency to buy and have it fully automated.
Okay.
So the dynamic insertion piece will be possible, but offering that out into a marketplace and having that executed, I don't think under the current regulation framework will be possible. There's too many risks associated with that, and certainly we wouldn't put our broadcasting license, we're regulated by Ofcom here in the UK, we wouldn't put that at risk. Certainly what we've seen on the VOD side of things, some of the things, that's relatively straightforward. It's a business that's mature, in inverted commas, and yet some of the things that go on VOD are quite eye-opening. And certainly, we could never, ever let anyone get near that on the kind of broadcast side. So I think for us, yes, but to extend that out is probably not possible.
And then the other point you mentioned about the kind of unification of VOD and all other properties in linear TV. So have you seen any of the prices coming closer together in terms of CPMs or any way that you're pricing linear versus digital?
So I think something's a bit of a challenge that we've sort of touched on over the last couple of days, but not specifically, is we measure two different things. So in VOD, you measure an impression, and in television, you measure an impact.
Yep.
Now, an impression is a device, an impact is an individual. So we're talking, again, at slightly cross purposes. So until we can figure out the measurement, we can't really compare the prices. And again, what we're trying to do is make that as straightforward for agencies and advertisers to make it a meaningful, value that we're measuring by. And certainly if you look at VOD and you look at the growth that we've seen in big screen VOD, which is therefore then saying, well, we know that 1.8 people are watching each impression, yet we're only charging for one. So how do we cross that bridge, and how do we merge those two levels of measurements in order to make it straightforward for advertisers to buy? They don't want to pay more because they're already getting those 1.8 people for the price of one. We would like to charge them for that 1.8, but it's difficult to do that. So I think comparison of price is difficult because ultimately we're talking about different things. But certainly, the price of television is robust for us, and the price of VOD is also robust. So they're not changing, ultimately, to answer your question.
Okay. And Ruth, is that sort of what you would like to see from broadcasters? Would you like to see unification of VOD and TV in the programmatic ecosystem?
Absolutely. I think you have to think about, again, that end person who is watching the content, right? The person that you want to connect with through the advertising. And for them, they're not distinguishing between, I'm watching it on TV right now, or I'm going to watch it on my mobile as I go to work, right? For them, it's a seamless experience. And a lot of the efforts that we've done, and a lot of the investment in terms of people as well within the agency, has been around the integration of planning capabilities across audiovisual content.
And are you willing to pay as much for the mobile as you are for the TV then?
Well, this is where it gets interesting, right? Because we still are using them in terms of the purpose of the platform. Mm-hmm. The application is different. But it's important to understand how they connect with each other to then be able to say, am I paying the right price for that particular interaction on that type of platform at that point in time? And to your point, Barry, we don't have the measurement unification yet to allow us to really model whether the prices that we are paying across the whole value chain and the interactions that we can potentially have with consumers is correct. We're not there yet. I mean, we can barely agree on how we adopt some of the older models like GRP into a digital world through things like DAR, for example. And so it is something, I think measurement is something that we should be investing heavily on, something that we certainly are investing heavily on.
You're nodding, so I feel like, yeah.
I agree with her because I do think that establishing a new matrix, a cross-device, cross-screen comparable matrix is absolutely vital for the new ecosystem. And this is an issue a trending topic in our market, and advertisers are very concerned about this. Also because of the, let's say, problems we had with Facebook and Google measurements. So there's a lot of concern about this point, and this is a key point for our industry to build the future of TV ads, to have a common comparable metrics. I do love the Video Advertising Bureau contribution on the US experience because I think it is valuable, and we would like to follow that way.
So, Léon, do you think programmatic TV is kind of a solution for the challenges in measurement?
I don't think it's a solution to the challenges in measurement. I think the measurement has to come first, and then programmatic TV can come into that. From our perspective and from talking to broadcasters, the main problem with programmatic TV is that it's been very focused on the transaction, and ultimately, broadcasters don't need help selling their media. They're excellent at it. They've been doing it for 50 years. Where they need assistance is in the campaign management, which is what Barry was touching on, right? How do you yield optimize against multiple screens? Giving your users the flexibility to consume that content anywhere, anytime, yet your media is sold very siloed. So that's definitely where, I guess, once it's unified from a measurement standpoint, you can then start looking at how do you deliver that.
But we say once it's unified from a measurement standpoint, we've been talking about this for a long time. Is it going to be unified? And if it's not, what's our solution to this?
Group M came out today, didn't they, to say in the US, whether or not it's true. I don't know, but there was an article saying that they want to rip up the Nielsen playbook. Some new person at Group M. I don't know if that's true, but I don't know. It was in a press release, so.
I don't think you can wait for measurement. I think you can build a programmatic system that you could start with optimization, you can add addressable, you can add cross-platform. I think once you start packaging it together, there'll be some patterns that emerge that will lend themselves to pricing and measurement. But if we're always waiting for something to be fixed before starting, we're always going to be waiting.
I'll make a comment on that, because I think on that point I completely agree with you. I think and that's something that we are actively working on. So when you think about measurement, it's never going to be perfect. What we need to get to is to have it be consistent. So I think we need to agree on the different metrics that will be adopted across different types of formats, different types of platforms, so that then we can start generating similar patterns of comparison for us to be able to gauge the level of success. And to that effect, we are investing heavily on understanding how those metrics relate. The metrics that we have today, which sure are not perfect, but are consistent across the different elements of the video ecosystem. How can we connect them? What are the secondary or diagnostic metrics that we can use to supplement what we learn about our audiences as they go through that video journey? And then be able to deploy that across different categories or verticals to start identifying whether there's any truths that are applied to, let's say, the automotive category or the FMCG category. And I think that's where collaboration between the media owner side of the equation and us as agencies becomes really high value driving for our clients, because we're able to start delivering on benchmarks. And that's what we're lacking today.
I think it's really important that we do clarify that, because ultimately, when we're talking about the barbarians at the gates, you're talking about a different level of measurement, because we're talking about something that's watched after 2 seconds, that's clicked straight through in the stream, and yet we're talking about a programmatic solution that enables advertisers to buy. But at the same time, we're not even just not comparing linear and VOD together, we're not comparing VOD and VOD together. So it's really important, because it concerns us significantly that we, as a broadcaster, are put in the same measurement process as someone who's on a small screen flicking through, their feed. Now, not to do Facebook bashing, but at the same time, it doesn't matter who it is or how you measure it. But ultimately, there needs to be a level of consistency in order to allow us to compete for that money in a realistic fashion, and to ultimately provide the results that the advertisers want. Because ultimately, we're talking about effectiveness of advertising. We think we compare very well in that world, so we just need to help the advertisers show that. But certainly to have a unified way of measuring that is really, really important for us.
So Virginie, in France, you guys are famous for unionizing and getting together and making deals. So are the broadcasters talking and trying to come up with a consensus standard around programmatic TV?
Yes, sure. When it comes to measurement, we had an initiative on the French market, which we call the video GRP. We were trying just to find out which should be the way of measuring the touch point in the digital world, and be able to compare it.
So that's in video?
To TV. Yes, that would be video, but that would be any kind of video, not only TV content video, but any kind of video. So how can we compare the digital touch point with the TV touch point? So we had this measure, but to be honest, I don't think that anybody is actually buying or selling on video GRP right now in France because it's complicated. It doesn't fit into the current system. So before we are able to face this measurement issue, which is not only the fact of the broadcast, we also have to rely on the global industry. So it could take some time, and we cannot afford to wait so much. We have to face many issues, and especially we have to face the issue that basically TV is sold out, at least the big channels, and the inventories are not increasing anymore because of fragmentation, because of millennials, new habits. And so we just have to, and the value of the touch point on TV is decreasing. We had a CPM on TV, which is lower and lower every year. It's very difficult to keep the value on TV. So we just have to find a way to bring back this value on TV. So either with better optimization of the inventory, which would be addressable. So, we have to go together, the French market, to make new regulation on everything. But maybe first we could use the ability of TV. In France, you have 60% of TV which is broadcast through set-top boxes, connected set-top boxes. So basically we have return path data on a very regular basis, and it's very rich information. So maybe it could be a first way just to optimize TV inventories, and especially to give value to zero rating ad breaks, which we are not able to monetize right now. So the first step that we would like to do, we have a hybrid measurement project just with Médiamétrie, which is the French official measurer for the TV in France. So we are just trying to set up a hybrid measurement on TV, just like we have done on the digital. And so to enhance measurement on TV would be a first step, and it would be very close with digital. Then, of course, we have to put together the measures and to say, okay, can we compare the digital inventories with the TV inventories, and ultimately to sell everything all together on the, in the same just big area.
I think that's the most interesting point about programmatic TV is leveraging that set-top box data and giving those zero-rated impressions some rating. So I'm going to ask one more question, but please start thinking of your questions as well. So increasingly, programmatic TV looks like, at least from some of the insights here, as a kind of a way to plan inventory. So what does that mean for the future role of the agency? So I don't know if Ruth, you want to take this one, or if somebody else wants to chime in.
I'd love to hear Vanessa's thought on that. It's always useful to get the view from the outside in. For us as media agencies, our role is to unify those touch points. I think one of the biggest challenges that any brand faces today is the fragmentation across their marketing budget allocation. You are increasing fragmentation from a media point of view. You are increasing fragmentation in terms of how you deal with the different touch points that any given consumer has. You're increasing fragmentation in terms of the platforms through which you can reach them. And those walls are getting higher and higher in some cases. And the amount of times that I've heard throughout this and other conferences, the data is mine, I'm going to keep them. I totally get it from a business point of view. That is a differentiator. But for my clients, that poses a huge challenge, because that data is absolute gold in terms of helping them inform who their audiences are and how to generate value for those audiences. So on that front, I think we as a media agency have a unique vantage point across all the spend that our clients are putting through different channels, different walled gardens, if you want to call them in certain cases. And our job is to make it easier for them, to help them unify those touch points to be able to give them the best and most complete picture of those audiences. And that is, if we can deliver that for our clients, that is of huge value, because it then helps inform the entire business strategy as well.
Brilliant. I'm going to ask one more question, guys. Sorry. Barry and I, before the panel, we had an interesting conversation about kind of the future of creative in a programmatic TV world. So what can happen when we have programmatic TV deployed across 46 channels, as you say?
Well, whether it's optimization or addressable, the creative will always work better when it speaks to the segment you're targeting.
So are we seeing the death of the 30-second spot?
I hope not, but I hope that the 30-second spot becomes 3 30-second spots that can be used to drive the same objective to different audiences. Mass is great. There's always going to be a place for mass awareness at the top of the funnel. But as you move down to get the full power of the television ecosystem, you still need, you want that spot to narrow, in a sense.
So programmatic is a road to addressable, and here kind of the opposite, addressable, the road to programmatic. Okay, do you guys have any questions in the audience for our fantastic European, Canadian, and everywhere else panel? No questions, everything's answered. So I have another question then. So we talk about programmatic, right, and TV advertising. But for broadcasters, can programmatic be anything beyond advertising? So can we start trading content programmatically? So do we need a MIPCOM anymore, for example, where content creators and broadcasters will get together to buy content when you can do it maybe programmatically?
I'll have a go at that. It's challenging to see that, but you look at the success of Netflix, undoubtedly have cracked certain codes that broadcasters felt were uncrackable, and I think that providing more choice and more flexibility from a fixed linear schedule is certainly something that we're looking at for the future. But content programmatically is very difficult to say. Well, beyond the creative question, which I think goes hand in glove with the ability to dynamically insert, because as we said yesterday, there's no point in dynamically inserting the same creative to everybody. You may as well just buy fixed reach. But I think the content question to be programmatic is a kind of extension to the data question. It's about enabling viewers to be content surfaced to them in the most efficient way, which can mean programmatic content, if you like, is ultimately surfacing content efficiently using data.
Anyone else have any comments on content? So why should, for example, a Chilean broadcaster go to MIPCOM to buy a Turkish soap opera, which is going to be a #1 show, when they could do it programmatically?
I would think, we recently announced a partnership with a company called Vemba, which is a content syndication platform, also exchange. Of course, it's currently focused in digital, but there's absolutely no reason, if I'm a connected TV app, I couldn't just take one of their players. It can optimize the content based on, in digital, it's based on the web page and the content on the page, but it could just as easily do it based on who I am, because they know that from my TV purchase or whatever that is. And then it could just optimize that content within the app, and they can sell ads against it. So I can definitely see it. There's no reason why companies couldn't extend that into the broadcasting space. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Checking again, one last chance for questions. Anyone have any questions? No? Okay, in that case, so last question, how much of your linear TV will be programmatic at the end of 2017? Barry.
Programmatic by the definition of dynamically inserted?
No, not dynamic ad insertion. So data used for planning.
Data used for planning? None.
None. Virginie, same question.
If it's OTT, yeah, it's very small part.
OTT.
But come to linear, no.
Barry, you said already, 5-10%. Ruth, how much do you hope to be buying?
Well, we're looking at probably 85.
85%?
85 to 15%. And
So
again,
50%.
in that, there's a couple of caveats.
Got it. Matteo?
I would say 0% for linear, while I am aiming to 100% of addressable advertising on non-linear.
Got it. And how much do you hope to see from your clients?
Well, there's hope, or I'd say realistically we're in the single digits in percentages by the end of 2017.
In Europe?
Yeah, and some countries may do better than others and may kind of just break that double digit, but if you're looking at an average, low single digits.
Got it. Brilliant. If you could please join me in thanking our fantastic panel.